grounded. Pro-Palestinian activists in airports across Europe are angered after Israel blocks them from taking part in a so-called flytilla. So why is Israel so nervous about these activists from abroad? And could their protests really make a difference on the ground? You're watching Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. It's good to have you with us. I'm Divya Gopalan. Members of the Welcome to Palestine 2012 campaign were refused entry into Israel on Sunday. The Israeli authorities detained more than 40 of them at Tel Aviv's international airport for taking part in the protest. Now, this happened as Israel was once again in the spotlight for its handling of pro-Palestinian activists. Here's Lieutenant Colonel Shalom Eisner ramming his assault rifle into the face of Andreas Ias. The Danish national was taking part in a pro-Palestinian bike rally in the occupied West Bank. The Israeli army has now suspended the senior officer until the outcome of an inquiry investigating the incident. Well, many protesters were prevented from boarding their flights to Tel Aviv after the Israeli government demanded that airlines stop them from flying. Here's what some of them had to say.
Apparently, Israel is a closed country. I didn't know. They told me my name is on a list, and I don't know if I'm on a list of terrorists, of people not welcome in Israel. I asked for an explanation, but no one can provide one.
We have a ticket, we have a passport, it is valid. There is no reason to prevent us. This is a scandal. We thought the Turkish government was in solidarity with the Palestinian people, and it is not the case. Why?
But this is not the first time the Israeli army's response to activists has caused controversy. In 2003, Rachel Corrie, a member of the International Solidarity Movement, or ISM, was killed as she tried to stop the destruction of a Palestinian village. The Israeli army says she was killed by falling debris. The ISM maintains she was deliberately run over by a bulldozer. In 2010, the Israeli Navy intercepted the Turkish ship, the Mavi Marmara, as it sailed towards the Gaza Strip carrying aid. 9 pro-Palestinian activists died. So the question is Israel overreacting to the so-called flytilla activists? And to discuss this, we're joined by our guests in Tel Aviv, Gregg Roman, Deputy Director of the Gloria Center Herzliya and a former political advisor to the Knesset. In Ramallah, Mustafa Barghouti, Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. And in Edinburgh, Mick Napier, UK Coordinator of the Welcome to Palestine 2012 campaign and the Chairman of the Scottish Palestine Solidarity. Gentlemen, we welcome you all. I'm going to put my first question to Gregg Roman and ask him why Israel is so worried about this handful of activists roaming the streets who would theoretically come there, make a little bit of noise and leave if they weren't stopped.
Well, I think, first of all, one of the reasons why they came to Israel and didn't land in Damascus is because if they were to go to Damascus to protest against Syrian human rights violations, they would be shot at the airport as opposed to what happened in Ben Gurion. When we have provocation after provocation of activists coming to our borders and trying to disrupt the normal lives of Israelis, it's not because they want to make a political message which will further the cause to actually be able to establish a state of Palestine. What it is political debauchery. Now, we see time after time, and you mentioned it in the beginning, between flytilla, flotilla, marches on Israel's borders, all of these incidents do not do anything to allow the Palestinian people to get closer to a state of Palestine, which in my opinion should be the objective of activists who are trying to seek a Palestinian state. I mean, right now, we are at a time in which there is increasingly more anarchic actions around Israel's borders. And even with the crisis going on with Iran, people are trying to put the message and the spotlight back on the Palestinian issue. And by the way, I deplore any violence that is used against any Palestinian protesters or any protesters for that matter. And one of the reasons why Israel dealt with the protesters coming into the airport in the way that they did was to minimize the chance that there would be violence. On one hand, like we had with the Mavi Marmara incident, we understand that these people are trying to come to our borders to only cause provocation. And on the other hand, the Israeli security forces dealt with these protesters at the airport and also informed airlines to cancel their tickets so there would not be any violent actions, which is usually the result of what happens when people try to provoke Israel's right to defend its borders, to defend its sovereignty, and so on and so forth.
Okay, Gregg Roman, I'm going to give Mick Napier a chance to respond to that and ask him, were the activists there for provocation, and what do you expect to achieve from this? Can you respond to Gregg Roman's allegations to you that all you're doing is really provoking the Israelis?
Well, it's difficult to know where to begin. I mean, Mr. Roman says Israel's defending its borders. I think Israeli borders would be a very nice thing because they keep on expanding and shifting day by day. In terms of the Welcome to Palestine initiative, we asked repeatedly and we pledged to all concerned that we wanted to transit Tel Aviv airport as unobtrusively as possible. I think, by the way, that it's a misnomer to say this was a protest. This was an attempt to peacefully travel to the occupied West Bank, illegally occupied according to my own government, and meet there with Palestinians. Now, Palestinians have been deprived of many rights, and all your viewers know this, but the right that we sought to assert peacefully was the right of Palestinians to receive visitors, to discuss political issues, to build a school, the general things which people around the world accept as normal, but which Israel cruelly, savagely, and consistently denies to the occupied people of Palestine. So Mr. Roman can talk about anarchy, he can talk about provocation and so on, but the facts will reveal. And last year when we actually, and I was one of those who went to Tel Aviv and was handcuffed and manacled and taken off to Givon prison, the facts will reveal not a single incident of violence or provocation in Tel Aviv airport by those who wished to travel peacefully and unobtrusively to Palestine. And actually, let's be honest, to challenge this brutal siege. It has always been an axiom of the Israeli foreign policy to isolate Palestinians while the bulldozers work, the olive trees are burned, people are thrown on the streets, and the crimes escalate. Well, we wanted to challenge that by saying we don't accept that Palestinians should suffer these crimes in isolation, and we wanted to show them that the whole world is with them.
I'm going to give Mr. Roman a chance to respond to that. Shouldn't Palestine, Welcome to Palestine 2012, be granted safe access into the territories they want to go without being stopped at airports or on the ground even before they can set foot on Israel?
Okay, the slogan, Welcome to Palestine, is actually indicative of the true political agenda of these individuals. If they wanted to go to the area which I hope one day will be Palestine in the West Bank and Gaza, they could have entered through the Rafah crossing in Gaza, which borders Egypt, where there is no Israeli presence, or they could have gone through the Allenby Bridge and traveled to Amman Airport into Jordan. There were alternatives, but the fact that they chose to fly into Israel proper is trying to change the nomenclature and the actual words in which people describe what is Palestine, because these people who are protesters on the outside. Now we have two kinds of individuals who are protesting. Those who come in across Europe, or they come across North America and they wish to protest whatever actions that the Israeli government takes on a day-to-day basis. And to use the common lingo of burning olive trees, of isolating the Palestinian people, deprives individuals of the facts. Palestinian GDP is up at one of the highest levels since the signing of the Oslo Accords. We see a fully autonomous government acting in Gaza with Hamas. And in doing so, what he's trying to do is to divert this towards pathos by basically lying about what is going on the ground, and in doing so illustrating a political agenda that doesn't get either side anywhere. He's trying to basically distort what is actually happening, and in doing so is only making the Palestinian cause more trivial because of his own actions and what he had just said.
Mr. Barghouti, I'm going to give you a chance to talk about this. Firstly, should these activists be granted safe access into Palestine? Should they take other routes, as Mr. Roman just suggested? And what would you say is the situation? Is there a need for these activists to be there?
Well, when people tell lies like Mr. Roman, that does not make the lies true. First of all, let me clarify that he mentioned Allenby Bridge as if Allenby Bridge is not under Israeli control, and as if so many people who are trying to cross to the West Bank through Alembi Bridge are not turned back by the Israeli army and by the Israeli border police. Israel is controlling all our passages. We have no airport, we have no port. Even Gaza seashore is controlled by the Israeli Navy, which does not allow fishermen to fish deeper than 3 miles into the sea. And if they do, they shoot them, as they did to some of them 2 days ago. What we see here is a severe act of violence by Israel against non-violent acts, non-violent Palestinian resistance. They use violence against Palestinians all the time. And now they are extending their violence and their racism and their fascist behavior in certain occasions against internationals. We've seen what Eisner did to the Danish activists. In this case, Eisner was investigated only because somebody took a video shot of what has happened. But there are so many other occasions when nothing has happened because it was not documented. We have even cases when a person like Ashraf Abu Rahmi, who was a Palestinian in Ne'lin, was blindfolded, handcuffed, and forced to stand in front of a soldier by an Israeli officer, and then the Israeli soldier shot him from the distance of 1.5 meters while he was blindfolded and handcuffed. And nothing happened to the officer, nothing happened to the soldier. These are practices by the Israeli army that are happening all the time. Second, all these internationals who come here come in solidarity with Palestine. They are peace activists. These are the people who are demanding the end of occupation and the end of apartheid. And they are not going to disturb the lives of the Israelis. All they wanted is access to the West Bank. All they wanted is to get to Bethlehem, where they were supposed to participate in building a school. So when Israel blocks them in the airport and deals with them as if they were like military people, this is just a reflection of how wrong the Israeli policy is. And how far their racism have gone.
All right.
The issue here is very clear.
I want to bring Mr. Mick Napier in to talk to him about these issues. I mean, you want to go there, but it clearly aggravates the Israelis, and it's clearly causing tensions among all sides. What do you actually achieve from doing this?
The crisis in Palestine, the dispossession and the racist program of ethnic cleansing will only be brought to an end by mass international global pressure. This is already beginning. Israeli goods cannot get into South African ports because as soon as the dockers there hear about it, they don't allow them and the ships have to leave with their loads on board. South Africa today, many parts of the world tomorrow. Israel only respects force. It does not respond to ethical arguments. It does not respond to ethical critiques. And the force that Israel will confront against its militarism and violence and murder of many Palestinians, which, as Mustafa Barghouti points out, always or virtually always goes unpunished. The response which will stop Israeli militarism and violence is mass democratic, peaceful action around the entire globe to punish Israel for its crimes until the crimes end. And this action was actually successful in playing a very important auxiliary role in ending apartheid in South Africa, and it will play another auxiliary role in supporting the Palestinian struggle for freedom. And I say this to the Israelis. We all know that it's very easy to invade Kabul, but it seems to be more difficult to hold on to it. The Israelis may have projected their power into Manchester, Toronto, and Paris and other airports, but you know, we are strong here and they're weak. We have mass public opinion on our side, and public support for Israel is almost vanishingly small. And I don't think the Israelis, who have projected their power so internationally in order to maintain their brutal siege of Palestine, I don't think they will be able to hold the territory that they have briefly occupied.
Mick, you brought in the idea of democracy, and Israel maintains or says that it is the only true democracy in the region. Mr. Roman, if that's the case, isn't democracy about being able to voice your opinion and being able to demonstrate on the streets? Shouldn't that be allowed in that case?
Of course it should be allowed in the streets, and we see hundreds of thousands of Israelis supporting the Palestinian cause. You know, what's happening right now is that you have a man in Scotland trying to say that peace between Israelis and Palestinians is going to be made in Manchester or Edinburgh. However, the only place where peace is going to be made is in Jerusalem and Ramallah. That's why you have Salam Fayyad, the Palestinian Prime Minister, meeting today with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. 2 weeks from now, you'll have Netanyahu's envoy, Yitzhak Malcho, meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The only way to actually get towards peace is through dialogue and through democratic discourse, as opposed to the provocative actions that organizers like the man in Scotland and like Mr. Barghouti are promoting. There's nothing wrong. Wait, hold on 1 second. The end goal is to end occupation. Of course it is. This is what we tried to do in 2000.
Are you going to end occupation?
Excuse me, sir, you had your time to speak. Please allow me to speak now. Yes, I think that the end goal should be the end of the occupation of these areas. I agree with you. I think the problem is,
under occupation for 45 years.
Hold on 1 second. Okay. 1 second, Mr. Barghouti.
45 years of occupation.
Now, one second. How many times have Israelis agreed to Palestinian peace accords? I think we're on number 13 now in terms of the peace conferences that we've had. But on one hand, we have the Hamas government in Gaza denying our right to exist and launching rockets on us on a daily basis almost. And on the other hand, we have the Palestinian Authority arresting Palestinian journalists who are trying to call for negotiations with Israel. So until you get your own house in order, I think that it's important to recognize that every day the Israeli government is ready to negotiate with the Palestinians. But until the Palestinians are able to get themselves together, I think that the Palestinian Authority right now, and I'm not a representative of the Israeli government, is suppressing its own people's rights to express themselves. So how can you complain about the state of Israel trying to protect its borders on the busiest travel day of the year, which is the day after Passover, which is when this flight to the West Bank was planned for, when you have so many other options to attain a peace agreement? You choose to agitate as opposed to discuss. You choose to provoke instead of engage in discourse. And everything that you're doing and everyone that organizing events like these, flytillas, flotillas, marches on the land of Israel, is only pushing the future of a Palestinian state further away.
Okay, Mustafa Barghouti, it seems like you want to get your say in. Go on.
Listen, Israel is not a democracy. It could not be a democracy when it is oppressing another people. It cannot be a democracy when it is oppressing 20% of its citizens, the Palestinian Arabs who have Israeli citizenship, and treating them like second-rate people. It's not a democracy when it is occupying the West Bank and Gaza Strip and the Golan Heights for more than 45 years now. This is the longest occupation in modern history. It cannot be a democracy when it is practicing apartheid. At this very moment, the Israeli GDP per capita is $30,000. The Palestinian GDP per capita, which you spoke about, is less than 1,400. But we are obliged to pay the same prices like Israelis do because of your imposed market and tax union. You take away 90% of the water resources in the West Bank, and then you oblige us to buy water and electricity at double the price that Israelis pay. You segregate the roads in the West Bank. You took away our access to Jerusalem. I was born in Jerusalem. I worked as a medical doctor in Jerusalem. And since 6 years, Israel prevents me from even reaching the city and visiting my sister there. You use terrible violence against peaceful, non-violent demonstrations. I was one of those who were injured by your violence more than once. And this act of violence against non-violent resistance is not a sign of democracy. Let me tell you, when we struggle, we and the people in international solidarity movement, we are not struggling only to get the Palestinian people free from the system of occupation and apartheid. We are struggling to make you also free, to make the Israelis free from the last colonial settler system in modern history. There is nothing to be proud about in creating an apartheid at the end of at the beginning of 21st century. There is time to end occupation, time to end apartheid, and it will not end only by having a meeting here and a meeting there. It will end only when the Israeli people realize that you are putting them in a very bad situation of being an oppressor, an occupier, and a people who use terrible violence against non-violent resistance. The most beautiful thing about the Palestinian resistance today, that it is non-violent.
Right.
And the most important thing is that these solidarity people are repeating what people did with us in the case of South African apartheid system.
Okay,
they are
I'm going
in
to move it on
solidarity
now
for
and go
freedom.
to Gregg Roman,
They are in solidarity
who,
for dignity.
Sorry, I'm going to move it on. And I want to pick
in?
up on one of Gregg Roman's points. And the point is there is a peace process in place. They are meeting next week. And I want to ask Mick Napier why you don't just let this peace process go ahead. Why do you have to go in there and cause these agitations, which in the end does, to a certain extent, create acrimony?
Well, if I may say so, Mr. Roman told a transparent lie in the first minute of his presentation. It was about geography and supposedly free access to Palestine. Anybody can prove that this is untrue. He's also talking about the negotiations and the peace process. Well, Israel loves negotiations. The only precondition for the negotiations is that Israel will continue to grab more land, dispossess Palestinians everywhere in the area its military controls, and continue to allow settlers to rampage, protected by the Israeli army, in actually burning down olive trees and demolishing homes and making Palestinians homeless. So the peace process is a complete charade. It is a cynical ploy behind which Israel continues to dispossess Palestinians. And the facts will show that this process continues every single day without exception. Now, our response is very simple. It's to say we wish to contribute to a peaceful solution. We wish to see the end of apartheid. We wish to see universal human rights respected. And we will intervene because my government intervened from the days of Balfour, when it handed over Palestine to European colonisation, and my government still displays its solidarity with the Israeli government. And we are duty-bound as British citizens and as world citizens to show our solidarity with the people of Palestine. And if I can just say this to Mr. Roman, you can successfully kill Palestinians and you can stop us getting to Palestine. It's very easy, but you cannot reach us here. And you cannot stop us coming into the lists in support of the people of Palestine. And if we cannot meet in Palestine, and you prevent us, we are going to meet somewhere else. There is a world forum coming up in Brazil in November when people on a planetary basis are going to come together to decide how to intensify the campaign of isolating the apartheid state and joining in the Palestinian freedom struggle. South African apartheid is down, and Israeli apartheid
Mick Napier,
is going down.
I'm afraid I'm going to have to interrupt you very quickly as we're running out of time, but I want to allow Gregg Roman to respond to that and just ask you, given the arguments you've heard, why don't you let just activists come in there, have their voice, have their say, and leave as they probably would? I mean, essentially, it is the real meaning of true democracy.
Well, it's a misnomer that we don't allow activists to come into the West Bank. I mean, the incident that happened yesterday was an international activist who was being targeted because of a protest that he was having in the Jordan River Valley. So I think that's the first, fallacious comment that we have to respond against. But hold on. You had your point. Now let me finish mine. Now, I applaud the fact that he's going to be meeting with other Palestinian activists in Brazil, and I think it's important for people to discuss this. But I think that it's more important for Israelis and Palestinians to sit together and to be able to come to consensus. And he said that the peace process is a cynical ploy. I would like to hear what other way that he proposes that we get towards peace, because every single time an Israeli leader, every single time an Israeli leader makes an offer to a Palestinian leader, the Palestinian leader denies it. In the last one, we had 99.8% of the land that these two individuals are talking about, and it was denied by the Palestinian leadership. So the real problem is not what Israel is doing to the Palestinians or all of the horrible things that Mr. Barghouti and Nicholas talked about. It's the intransience of Palestinian leadership to accept negotiations with the state of Israel in order to come to an equitable solution that addresses all of the problems that he came up with. Let's be be able to sit down and talk and address all of these problems instead of throwing out accusations and negative charged political words. And in doing so, maybe we can actually get to a peace agreement. Otherwise, status quo will continue, and Palestine will not exist until we are able to get to a solution which both sides can agree to, and not just have this one-sided rhetoric that these other two individuals keep on espousing.
All right, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. I'd love to keep this discussion going because there's plenty more to say in all of this. We've run out of time. It's come to the end of the show, but thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been really good to have you on here. From Tel Aviv, Gregg Roman; in Ramallah, Mustafa Barghouti; and in Edinburgh, Mick Napier. And to our viewers, thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. And if you want to send us your feedback, just email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching, and goodbye for now.